The diner sat in a heavy hush, broken only by the slow whirl of the ceiling fan and the faint clink of a coffee cup meeting its saucer. Morning sunlight stretched through wide windows, painting the tiled floor in gold. The air felt still, almost frozen in a movie moment, until a small voice shattered it. A little girl dropped to her knees right there in the middle of the diner. Her tiny hands trembled as she pressed them together, her face streaked with tears that shimmered in the light like falling glass. Every biker turned to stare. Boots scraped against the floor. Forks hovered mid-air. Nobody breathed. Because this wasn't the kind of thing you saw in a place like that. Not in front of men who looked like thunder and carried stories inked into their skin. Yet there she was. A child. Kneeling, begging them to arrest her. If you still believe in kindness, in second chances, in the small moments that prove compassion hasn't vanished from this world, pause for a second. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Because this story isn't just one to hear, it's one to feel. Her name was Sophie Maynard, only 8 years old. The first time she stepped into the Devil's Diner, she looked like she hadn't slept in a week. Her hair tangled, her shirt dusty and torn, her knees scraped raw from running. The men inside were members of the Devil's Disciples, a biker brotherhood known for their loyalty and their silence. It was their Sunday ritual, pancakes, black coffee, and the kind of laughter that came from men who'd seen too much. At the head of the table sat Grayson Hall, a man built like a wall, beard silvered with years, his arms carrying the inked record of a hard-lived life. Chapter leader, respected by all, feared by some. When Sophie dropped before him, the entire room froze. Her voice broke through the stillness, trembling. Please arrest me. I can't go back home." The words hit the bikers like a fist to the gut. These men had faced prison, loss, and fights that left scars, but this was something none of them were ready for. Grayson's jaw tightened. He crouched slightly, trying to meet her eyes. Around him, the others stood silent, some exchanging uneasy glances, others just staring. Through broken sobs, Sophie told her story. Her mother had died months ago. Since then, she'd been living with her mother's boyfriend, a man who promised safety but delivered fear. He blamed her for everything, the bills, the shouting, the emptiness in his chest. Every night, she hid beneath the kitchen table until he left for the bar. Every morning, she prayed someone would come for her. That morning, she ran. She didn't even know where her feet were going, only that she had to keep moving. Then she saw them, the bikers, rough, loud, powerful. In her frightened mind, they looked like law itself. So she made a desperate choice. If anyone could arrest me, maybe they could save me. The men didn't know how to react. They were used to engines and steel, not tears and trembling voices. The youngest biker, Rhett, blinked hard, his throat tight. Grayson stood still, his heart pounding beneath layers of leather and grit. Not in anger at the girl, but at the monster who had made her believe she was the one at fault. He finally spoke, voice low, controlled. "Where do you live, sweetheart?" "Who did this to you?" Sophie shook her head, whispering over and over, "Please, don't send me back." Grayson rose slowly and turned to his crew. No words were needed. One look, one nod. And every man there understood exactly what was about to happen. They weren't cops, but they were men who knew injustice when they saw it. Minutes later, the quiet of the diner was shattered by the roar of engines. Grayson led the pack, the sound rolling like thunder through the small town as 10 black bikes tore down the road toward the broken-down house Sophie had described. Back at the diner, little Sophie sat at the counter with Marlene, the cook, a warm, motherly woman with kind eyes. She wiped Sophie's tears with her apron and handed her a steaming cup of cocoa. "They'll take care of it, sweetheart," she whispered. Sophie nodded, clutching the cup like it was the only safe thing left in the world. When the bikers reached the house, they didn't come in yelling. They came in steady, calm, collected, deadly serious. The door creaked open, and the man inside froze. 10 men stood shoulder to shoulder in leather vests marked with fire and wings, their faces carved from stone. Grayson stepped forward, his voice low and final. You'll never lay a hand on that girl again. He didn't need to raise his fists. His presence said enough. Then instead of violence, he pulled out his phone and called the sheriff. By sundown, the man was in handcuffs, and for the first time in a long time, Sophie was safe. But that's not where the story ended. Weeks passed, and one by one, the devil's disciples kept showing up, not to intimidate, but to care. They brought Sophie warm meals, new clothes, and a small pink bicycle with her name painted in white across the frame. Grayson started visiting every day after work. He told himself it was just to check in, but deep down, he knew the truth. Sophie reminded him of someone he'd lost. His daughter, Hazel. She died in a car crash years ago. She would have been about Sophie's age now. One sunny afternoon, when Sophie spotted Grayson waiting by the diner, she didn't hesitate. She ran straight to him. This time there was no fear in her eyes, only light. She told him she was starting school again soon, that her foster family was kind, and that she missed everyone at the diner. Grayson swallowed hard. When she hugged him, he rested his rough, tattooed hand on her back and whispered, "You did nothing wrong, kid. You were brave." That night, the disciples met for their usual coffee. But their talk wasn't about the road or the ride. It was about Sophie. They voted without question to sponsor her schooling, to show up for every birthday, every graduation, every milestone. From that day forward, she wasn't just a kid they'd saved, she was their little sister. Months later, during a charity ride through town, the group spotted her on the roadside. Sophie stood there holding a handmade sign that read, "Thank you for saving me." The wind caught her hair as she waved, smiling so wide it could melt the toughest heart. The engines slowed. The men who once ruled the highways, men who'd sworn never to cry, felt tears burn behind their sunglasses. If this story touched your heart, take a second to like this video, share it, and subscribe to HOA-GLORIOUS Stories. Let's keep reminding the world that kindness can rise from the unlikeliest places. Now tell me, if you'd been in that diner that morning, would you have stopped for Sophie? I want to hear what your heart says. Grayson never called himself a hero, but every Sunday, when the bikes rolled into the diner lot and Sophie's laughter filled the air, he'd smile quietly, because sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't fighting the world. It's protecting one small soul who thought the world had already forgotten her. And for the devil's disciples, that was the ride of their lives.